We ain't got long and spring will soon be here. Oh, he's off! Oh.
So slow, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay, so it's still winter, but I'm already thinking about spring. So fishing in the winter can be difficult, and this is more down to what's in the water. A lack of food means that the fish will slow their metabolism and in turn become very difficult to catch. But things are going to change. It won't be long, and this underwater world is going to be filling with food. And the fish are going to be well aware of this, and they're going to start to respond. So whatever water we fish, we are aware there is fish in there. And over the winter, for the main, been unresponsive. This will be mainly down to less food during the winter. Most of our fishing in this period will be down to stockfish. But as spring arrives, we will see fish moving around more and moving into the margins. This will be down to the temperature change and food becoming more available. Covering the margins is a must. So for spring and moving towards summer, we're going to see a variety of foods moving towards these areas. So knowing what pattern to use and when can be useful.
Yep.
Okay, so what patterns and methods will give us a successful day's fishing? Okay, if you're new to fly fishing, to improve your chances of hooking them fish, target the stocking. Stockfish are the uneducated fish. Once they go into this water, they're going to be quite easily caught, and there's a huge amount of patterns that'll catch them. But this isn't going to last. Them fish will soon start to understand their own environment and become more difficult to catch. But there is one really big difference. Putting fish into the water now as opposed to the winter. In the winter there is hardly any food and the fish within days are responding to this and they become more lethargic and difficult to catch. Whereas at this time of the year with food about, they remain more active and they stay on the feed. But this feeding pattern is going to change as the fish starts to understand its own environment and what is real food. So what we do is LND. LND stands for lure, nymph and dries. And this is the order that we fish, from one stock to the next. Okay, so when stock first goes in, the most productive patterns are attractor patterns, and these are such things as your lures. So I'm not going to suggest that this is the only time you would use your attractor patterns or lures. But this is when they're very effective. These fresh fish are drawn more towards the movement and the flash that these patterns produce. But when fishing these patterns, you will notice that you will lose a few. And this is more down to the fish taking the pattern out of curiosity and not food.
And again, and he's off, and that was a good fish.
The method we use to fish is simple. It's either a floating line, sink tip or a slow intermediate. As for most of these fish, they're normally higher in the columns. But what you will find is locating these fish probably a bit harder than catching the fish. One good tip is to find out where they were stocked. They will hold in this area for several days. And these fish, they're still shoaling. And once you find them, you're sure to be pulling them out in greater numbers. Okay, all waters are going to vary, but for most, about a 1 week following, and the fish will start to understand their own environment and picking up on what is food. This is where we make the change. We start to go a bit smaller, and we start to introduce such things like the nymphs. So not only are the fish discovering their food, they're dispersing from the shoal, spreading around the lake, but they're also sitting a lot deeper in the water. So why would the fish want to be a lot deeper in the water? So apart from the top layers of water starting to warm and the reduced amounts of oxygen, the fish is thinking more on food and safety. So this is the fish sitting quite low in the water, and it's relying on its sight to spot its prey. So now we'll add the field of vision, and now the fish's prey marked with the black X. And now add the field of vision for the fish that's higher in the water. So we can certainly see that the fish that's higher in the columns is going to miss out on a lot of food. It may end up coming across the food that's in the surface at some point, but that's only if the fish below it doesn't get there first. But it'll certainly miss out on a lot of the food that's below the fish. And don't be too worried about presenting your fly too high. That fish is going to position itself so that it can view to the surface, and if that pattern is going by and the fish wants it, it's going to hit it pretty hard and pretty quick. But not only that, the fish that's in the top layers is in harm's way. Here the fish will be vulnerable to airborne predators. Okay, from this point on is what myself and the boys love about fishing. I guess that a lot of this stems from fishing the rivers and the wild lakes. We're going to be spending more time fishing rather than hooking.
It's a good fish. Really colourful. Really pretty fish. Colourful. Full fin.
Okay, so now we know the fish are going to be spread out throughout the water. They're going to be sitting a lot deeper, and we got a good idea of what they're going to be looking for. And most of the aquatic life that they're looking for is going to be darting around. So now we have a bit of an idea as what to present to them and how to fish them, most of which are going to be such things as the nymphs, the owls, or anything along that scale. Presenting something smaller, sparse, is more in tune to what the fish is going to be looking for. So our preferred setup for fishing these nymphs again is simple. Floating line and then you tip it, but the longer the tippet you can handle, the better off you are. And how do we fish it? Get out there, fish it quite quickly, move about a lot more. I've got the net on the back, virtually nothing else. I can move freely. Okay, for us, to fish light is important. We know we're going to want to be covering a lot of water, and that's due to the fish being spread out. And at this time, we're finding that the fish are responding more to something that's moving that bit faster. So we're fishing the patterns higher in the water and faster.
Go on, fish. Oh, I missed him. That was such a steady sip. I think I was a bit too quick, to be honest.
Okay, after about 3 to 4 weeks following the stocking, you may well find that the nymphs are not producing the fish that it was. So now we're going to offer the fish something totally different, the dry fly. Okay, so I'm aware that the dry fly is not used nowhere near enough on still waters, and this could be down to a lack of confidence in presentation, or even using those very small flies. But like everything else, the more you do, the better you get. So presenting the dry fly this late after a stocking could be the difference between a good day and a bad day. So like all methods and patterns, they will all have their day. But to wait to see fish rising before presenting a dry fly could be a mistake. With our present climate, we can present the dry fly through summer and winter. But what we are finding is that the smaller pattern's doing a lot better than the larger pattern. Okay, so we fish the dry fly in 2 ways. One is to cast out, present it and leave it for longer periods, and the other is to fan cast, covering more water. And what we're doing, we're putting the cast in, we leave it a moment, and then we recast. This will be more of an element of surprise. We're probably fishing blind for most of it, but as that fly lands, more often than not, the fish is coming up to take. So if you've got concerns about presentation, this method is going to work, as the fly is only on the water for seconds. Or you could just simply fish in a ripple. But if there's one spot I often check out, and it's where the ripple meets the calm. So if there's one thing most of us are going to shrug, and it's the smallest of the dry flies. Not only are they more difficult to tie on, but they're very difficult to see when they're out on the water. And these are sizes from 16 and down. So how do we get around this?
Look at that. I went to cover a fish there. Another one moved there. So there's two. There he goes, over this way. Get over here. I still can't see my fly, mind. I'm looking in that direction. I just know it's in a zone. So maybe if something in that 10-foot area maybe, have a go. All I'm going to do is just focus on that area because I can't see the fly as well as I'd want to. That wasn't it. I've never missed so many on a dry fly, to be honest. That's if they are taken. There was once, I was fishing away, the boys were laughing because I couldn't hook into a fish. And a lot of these dry flies are on a very light wire, and I didn't realise. One aggressive take, didn't check it, and the hook had snapped off. I was fishing for ages and I just could not hook a fish. That time I waited that much longer this time, and it worked. Oh God. Oh, and he's going for it. At last. Okay, so I've got the knack. I'm going to have a cup of tea after this.
Okay, one other element of fishing the dry fly, and that's striking into the fish. Because we're fishing sighted, it's very difficult to stop the urge and lifting into the fish straight away. But we've got to delay it. The saying used to be, God save the Queen, and then lift. But I suppose it's got to be God save the King now. So as we start moving into spring, I would urge you to start putting a bit of time in and fishing the dry. It'll take a little bit of time, but it'll be well worth it. Fishing the dry fly can be really exciting. So next time that you're out on the water, think about what you're fishing for. Are they stockfish, or are they fish that have been in for a while? There are going to be exceptions, but keep it in mind, LND. It'll be a good guide. So I hope you enjoyed the video and that it gave you a bit of food for thought. But before you switch off, why not consider subscribing? It would be great to have your support. So until the next video, take care